I'm going to tell this like an actual confession, not like a spicy story people turn into a joke. Because I didn't lose my wife to a swinger party. I lost my marriage to a version of my wife that had already left. And used one night as the cleanest exit strategy I've ever seen. My name is Ethan. I'm 35. My ex-wife is Maya. She's 32. We were the kind of couple that looked solid from the outside. Suburb outside Austin. A dog with separation anxiety. 2 cars. A mortgage. A calendar full of adult life stuff, dentist appointments, oil changes, birthdays we swore we wouldn't forget this year. And for a while, we were actually happy. Not movie happy. Real happy. The kind where you can sit on the couch in sweatpants, share fries, and feel like the world is manageable because you're doing it together. Then something shifted, and it wasn't dramatic. No screaming fights. No slammed doors. It was language. Maya got into this whole growth thing, podcasts, relationship TikToks, long YouTube interviews with people who talk like they're teaching a masterclass on being human. She started journaling. Going to women's circles. Listening to coaches who spoke in that smooth, confident tone that makes you feel like your normal life is a symptom. At first I thought it was healthy. Then I noticed how she used those words. If I had a concern, it wasn't a concern. It was a trigger. If I didn't agree with her, I wasn't disagreeing. I was resisting. If I wanted reassurance, I wasn't asking. I was seeking control. It sounds small, but it changes everything when your partner starts translating your feelings into a diagnosis. The first real sign, the one I can't unsee now, was the phone. Maya used to leave her phone anywhere, kitchen counter, couch cushion, bathroom sink. Then it started landing face down like it was trained. It wasn't just the phone. It was her energy. She started dressing like she was going somewhere after work even when she came straight home. Not revealing, not obvious, just intentional. Like she was curating an upgraded version of herself. And I did what a lot of men do when the ground starts moving under their feet. I told myself it was stress. Work. Identity. The usual 30s stuff. I didn't want to be the insecure husband. Then she brought up the party. Not like a confession. More like a casual, this is a thing people do now. She said she'd been invited to a private event for couples. A curated, consent-focused lifestyle salon. That phrase alone should have warned me. Nobody calls it a salon unless they're trying to make it sound elegant. She framed it like a relationship workshop with better lighting. Not about cheating. Not about replacing me. About exploring boundaries. About removing shame. About reconnecting through honesty. And here's the part that still makes me feel stupid. I didn't want to go. But I felt like saying no would cost me my marriage anyway. Because she had already set it up as a test. If I said yes, I was supportive and evolved. If I said no, I was scared and limiting. So I tried to negotiate, like I could build a fence around something like that. I laid out rules. No private rooms. No surprises. No going past anything unless both of us were explicitly okay. We leave the second it feels wrong. Maya agreed instantly. Too instantly. Like she wasn't negotiating, just collecting my signature. The invitation came through a couple we knew, not close friends, but the kind you see at a backyard barbecue and end up talking to for 20 minutes like you're all adults who have it together. Nina and Grant. They were polished. Fit. The cool couple. Their Instagram looked like an ad for modern marriage. They talked about intentional living and designing your relationship. They promised this event was curated and safe. Not weird. Not sketchy. They said the host was a guy named Julian, respected in the scene, big on consent. Hearing respected in the scene made my skin crawl, but we went anyway. Because I wanted to be the husband who didn't freak out at something new. The event was in the Texas Hill Country, in a modern rental house that looked like every luxury Airbnb listing, huge windows, clean furniture, warm lighting, music that didn't offend anyone. There were nice cars outside. Everyone looked normal. Not dirty or wild. Professionals. People who probably had 401ks. People who would complain about HOA fees. The atmosphere was tasteful. And that's what made it dangerous. Because when something looks safe, you doubt your instincts. Julian greeted us like he was hosting a retreat. Early 40s. Confident, calm, perfectly groomed. The kind of guy who can speak softly and still control a room. And I noticed something in the first 10 seconds. He didn't meet Maya like a stranger. He looked at her like he already knew her. Not a long stare. Not obvious. Just a microsecond of recognition that my body caught before my brain wanted to admit it. Maya's face didn't change much, but she did that tiny thing people do when they're trying to pretend nothing happened. She avoided eye contact for half a beat too long. I felt the floor tilt. But I swallowed it. Because there were people around, and everything was designed to make you act mature. Then Julian explained the structure of the night: phones away, no photos, consent language, zones, check-ins. He made it sound ethical, almost corporate. There was even a one-on-one consent check for each couple. That's when I realized this wasn't a party. It was a system. And my wife was moving through it like she'd been trained. The consent check happened in a small side room with soft lighting and a clipboard on the table, like we were about to sign closing documents. Julian asked questions the way a therapist does, calm, structured, like he already knew the answers. He didn't ask what we wanted. He asked what we were willing to allow, and he asked it in a way that separated us into roles. Maya got questions about empowerment, curiosity, freedom. I got questions about safety, comfort, fear. It was subtle, but it framed the story. She was evolving, I was catching up. And he wrote things down. That was the part that bothered me most. Because it wasn't just a check-in. It felt like creating a record. Then he slid the clipboard toward us and said it was a standard participation agreement. No recording. No photos. Consent rules. And then I saw it. An NDA. A non-disclosure agreement. That hit me like a cold hand on the back of my neck. I looked at Maya, expecting her to be surprised. She wasn't. She held the pen like she'd practiced. That was my moment. The moment I should have stood up, taken her hand, and walked out. But I didn't. I signed because I didn't want to look weak. I signed because I thought leaving would prove her point. I signed because I still believed this was something we could do together and come out stronger. We rejoined the main area, and the energy changed in a way that's hard to describe. Not chaotic. Not aggressive. More like coordinated. Music got softer. Lighting dimmed. People shifted from casual small talk into something more intimate, like a dinner party that slowly becomes a secret. Couples drifted in and out of curtained spaces. Some stayed in the open lounge. Everyone acted like they were doing something enlightened. Maya stayed close to me, but not affectionately. More like she was placing me where she needed me. Then Nina came over and guided Maya toward a different section of the house like it was normal, like it was part of the flow. And I followed because my body already knew I was losing her. That's when I saw Julian again, standing exactly where Maya was being led, waiting. Not hovering. Waiting like someone expecting someone. Maya's posture changed around him. Just slightly. A familiarity in her shoulders. My mind tried to rescue me with excuses. Maybe she'd seen him online, maybe he was known, maybe this is normal. But my gut didn't care about excuses. My gut recognized a pattern. My wife wasn't meeting a stranger. She was reconnecting with someone. I kept my face neutral, because the room was basically a social trap. Anything you do becomes a signal. Anything you say becomes evidence. Maya looked at me with this calm, measured expression, and I could tell she had already decided how this night would be remembered. She didn't check in with me the way we'd agreed. She didn't ask how I felt. She just moved forward like momentum was consent. I felt my body go into that weird survival mode where time slows down and you become an observer in your own life. I could have stopped it. I could have said no. I could have said this isn't what we agreed to. But everything about the environment was built to make refusal feel like an ethical failure. If I objected, I'd be the insecure husband, the controlling husband, the man who couldn't hold space. I hate admitting this, but it's true. I froze. And in that freeze, Maya took my hesitation as permission. I won't describe anything explicit, because that's not the point, and honestly it's not even the part that damaged me most. The damage wasn't visual. It was emotional. It was the realization that she wasn't nervous at all. She wasn't uncertain. She wasn't checking her boundaries. She wasn't exploring. She was executing. I stepped away before I did something stupid. I went outside to the patio and tried to breathe like a normal person. That's when I got a message from Maya. 4 words. Not "are you okay," not "do you want to leave," not "I love you." Just, "don't make a scene." That sentence did something sharp inside me. It confirmed what I didn't want to believe. Her priority wasn't our marriage. It was the narrative. I went back inside not to fight, but to watch. And once I started watching, I saw the structure. Julian wasn't just hosting. He was directing. He circulated like a manager, checking on certain people longer than others, speaking in a calm mentor tone, making uncertain men feel like their discomfort was a personal growth opportunity. And the couples who brought others in, like Nina and Grant, weren't just guests either. They were recruiters. They would float over to anyone who looked tense and talk about courage, about freedom, about healing. They didn't ask what you needed. They told you what your discomfort meant. That's when I realized this wasn't a one-night event. It was a funnel. I left. Quietly. No drama. No confrontation. I drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, feeling like I'd swallowed a live wire. And when I pulled into the driveway, I saw Maya's car already there. Already. Like she'd beaten me home. Like she'd planned the timing. That's when I knew the worst part wasn't what happened in that house. The worst part was waiting for whatever came next. Maya was sitting at our kitchen table with a glass of water like she'd just gotten back from a networking event. She looked composed. Not guilty. Not emotional. Composed. And there was a folder on the table. A physical folder. Inside were printed documents. Divorce paperwork. Not filed yet, but completed like a draft ready to send. That image still feels unreal. My wife, in our kitchen, in a calm posture, handing me my future like it was an agenda. She didn't frame it as punishment. She framed it as clarity. She didn't say she cheated. She didn't call it cheating. She said the night revealed incompatibility. That she needed a partner who could support her growth and hold space for her needs without fear. In other words, I failed the test. I asked one question, because it was the only question that mattered. Had this been planned? She didn't give me a straight answer. She adjusted the wording like a lawyer. Not a plan, clarity. Then she slid the folder closer, like she wanted me to be the one to touch it first, to accept it, to make it mutual. That night I slept in the guest room with our dog pressed against my leg like a witness. The next morning Maya acted normal. Coffee, routine, calm energy. Like she had already emotionally moved out and was just waiting for the legal part to catch up. And then the second part started, the story she told everyone else. Maya didn't say she left because she wanted someone else. She said we had mutually explored a new relationship model and that she realized my energy became unsafe and controlling when she stepped into autonomy. She used therapy language like armor. And people believed her, because she sounded calm and evolved. Meanwhile, I sounded like a guy trying not to drown. Here's what saved me: I stopped trying to win emotionally. I called a lawyer. A quiet family attorney recommended by someone at work, the kind of person who's seen enough breakups to recognize patterns without drama. I told her everything: the NDA, the consent check, Maya being calm, the folder waiting at home, the way the environment felt structured. My lawyer didn't react like I expected. She nodded like she'd heard a familiar song. Then she told me something that changed how I saw the entire night. She said there's been a rise in coaching communities that mix relationship therapy language with curated events. They use consent terminology, empowerment framing, and group pressure to normalize crossing boundaries, and they're extremely good at rewriting narratives afterward. Sometimes it's not illegal. It's just strategic. They create a script where discomfort equals toxicity, and boundaries equal insecurity. Then they sell people integration sessions and coaching packages. And I realized something: Julian didn't feel like a host because he wasn't a host. He felt like a professional because this was a business. A week later I received an email from Julian. Subject line: support. It was warm and caring, like he was checking on me. He said transitions can be intense, that men often struggle to integrate new experiences, that it's normal to feel disoriented. Then he offered private sessions. There was a payment link at the bottom. That email did more for my clarity than any argument could have. Because it confirmed the system. I followed my lawyer's advice, I documented everything and stopped reacting. No begging. No dramatic texts. No pleading for explanations. I became boring. And boring drives manipulators crazy. 2 weeks after that night Maya suggested we talk like adults, and she presented a settlement idea that looked fair until you read the details. She wanted the house, the dog, and a chunk of my savings because she needed stability. When I didn't accept instantly, she didn't yell. She got disappointed, like I was failing again. Then she hinted she could share things that would make me look bad if I made this hard. That was the first time she admitted there was leverage. I didn't argue. I left. That night, on our shared laptop, the one we used for bills, I saw a synced calendar entry Maya forgot to remove. 3 days before she ever mentioned the party, she had an appointment labeled legal consult. Family law office. So yes. It was planned. The party wasn't the beginning of the divorce. It was the prop. The evidence exhibit. The moment she could point to forever and say, "See, we tried, and he couldn't handle my truth." I confronted her once, not with emotion, but with fact. I knew she'd consulted a lawyer before the party. For the first time, her calm cracked, not into tears, into irritation. Like I'd spotted the trapdoor in the stage. She didn't deny it. She simply treated it as irrelevant. Then came the mistake that ended her leverage. An email thread popped up on the shared device, forwarded to her personal account. The subject line was businesslike and chilling: Ambassador Program Targets. Targets. Not couples. Targets. It wasn't a confession of anything criminal. It was worse. It was normal corporate language applied to people's marriages. Notes about couples: income level, relationship tension, how open they were to growth, how easily they felt shame, how likely they were to convert into paid sessions afterward. And Maya's name was in the thread. Not as a victim. As a participant. That's when my heartbreak turned into something stable: resolve. I printed it. My lawyer added it to the file. We didn't need to destroy Maya publicly. We just needed to protect me and shut down the narrative blackmail. After that, Maya stopped hinting. Stopped pushing. Became careful. Because nothing scares people who operate through narrative like receipts. The divorce went through. And I wish I could end the story with some clean moral lesson, but real life doesn't do that. The only real closure came months later when I ran into Grant in a grocery store aisle. He looked exhausted, older, like sleep had stopped working for him. He didn't try to be cool. He didn't talk about growth. He looked at me like a man who'd lost something and didn't know where to put the shame. He told me Nina and he were divorcing too. That the community turned on him the moment he protested boundaries. That he felt like he watched his marriage get rebranded as a lesson and sold back to him. Driving home that day, I didn't feel happy. I felt validated. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I wasn't the villain. I was a husband who got pulled into a system designed to make boundaries look like insecurity and consent look like momentum. I'm not telling this story to shame non-monogamy. I don't care what consenting adults choose. I'm telling it because if your partner starts using therapy language like a weapon, if a community feels like a courtroom, if you're asked to sign an NDA before anything happens, pay attention. Sometimes betrayal doesn't look like betrayal. Sometimes it looks like a beautifully curated experience: warm lighting, soft music, and paperwork. And if I could go back to the first moment Maya started placing her phone face down, I wouldn't demand to see it. I'd ask one question, calmly, before the story got written for me: are you still building a life with me? Or are you building an exit where I'm the bad guy? Because that's what she did. She left twice. First privately, inside her head and inside that system. Then publicly, using one night to justify a divorce she'd already drafted. And the hardest truth isn't that she wanted more. The hardest truth is that she wanted more so badly she decided I had to be the villain so she could feel like the hero. I'm not her villain. I'm just the guy who finally stopped signing things he didn't understand.